Welcome back to the Omega Podcast, where we bring you conversations at the intersection of business, technology, and innovation. Today we have a very special guest, Kendall Rankin, growth at Producer.ai, a company transforming the way creators and brands use AI in music production and content creation. In this episode, they discuss how redefining creative collaboration, monetization, and IP with AI, and her view on where the field is heading and what's next for AI in creative industries.
Welcome to the Omega Podcast with Kendall Rankin. I am super stoked and excited to have Kendall, who is the growth lead at Producer.ai. She is coming from Oakland, California, and I am super excited because Kendall has been a trailblazer in the tech space, working at leading companies, but now she has pivoted to a growing startup. Kendall, it is such a pleasure to have you on the Omega Podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate the introduction, and I'm excited to dive in and be here.
Amazing. Well, I know our listeners are super excited about your insight, your leadership approach to AI, but more specifically in the music production domain. And I know our listeners are super excited about that. But before we unravel into all of those different details, can you share with our listeners a little bit more about yourself?
For sure. So I'm Kendall, as Keenan mentioned. I'm actually originally from the DMV. So I grew up in Prince George's County, Maryland, which I feel like was very formative to who I am as a person today. I always had an interest in like math, science. And because of that, my mom encouraged me to pursue engineering. She's like, you also have a great personality, but get the engineering degree and then combine that later down the line. And that's essentially kind of what I've done. So I went to Georgia Tech. I did industrial engineering, which is kind of like the business side of engineering. And then after that, worked at LinkedIn in Chicago for a bit. And that was a great experience. Got to really dive into the big tech world, see how a larger company operates and meet some incredible people. And then since then, I've actually been working at smaller companies, a nonprofit focused on gender equity and VC and entrepreneurship called Always. And then while I was in business school, so I went to Wharton for my MBA. While I was in business school, experimented working with different startups, kind of in the blockchain space, and then now AI. And they've all had a theme of art at the intersection of them because I grew up singing. I love music. I have like so many concerts I'm scheduled to go to at the end of this year. So I thought it could be a really cool way to kind of be at the forefront of the conversation on how does AI show up in the creativity space? What does that mean for artists? And making sure that we're doing it in a way that is ethical, that we're being empathetic to people and their connection to music. And it's just been a really fun experience, very challenging because it's just so new. And so no one has really heard of this space or not heard of it, but people aren't that like receptive all the time to it because it's so different and kind of crazy. But I think being at the forefront of that conversation as someone that loves music and loves technology is really fun. Aside from all that, I write pretty consistently about what I'm seeing just in AI in general, what it means for society, what it means for people of color, communities of color, things I'm learning and breaking down how to use AI in a way that's beneficial, but also acknowledging the criticism that comes with it, such as environmental impacts and, just some of those other criticisms, which are very valid. And then I have been skydiving 3 times. So I'm an adrenaline junkie, hence why I'm working at a startup. It's a little bit about me.
Amazing. I'm telling you, a lot that you shared just resonates with so many people, especially when it comes to understanding the different implications of utilizing AI in music, and then your background and how you've been able to come into this new role at a growing startup is just so profound. And we're super excited to learn more about that journey that you're on. But just so that we can be able to set the grounds for our conversation in regards to the evolution of AI, especially in music production, to give us a start, if you think back 200 years ago, people sat around a campfire perhaps, and everyone was perhaps playing a banjo or some sort of guitar and everything was live. And now we're in this evolution of You don't necessarily have to have live musicians playing on a stage in order to create that musical experience. I mean, you can have AI generated music and just have an artist singing to like the background of it. But, in what ways do you envision AI fundamentally changing the role of a music producer in the next 5 to 10 years, right? Because now we're developing the music, but now in the music production side, the person that's behind developing the soundtracks and all of that. I mean, where do you see that changing?
Yeah, great question. We get, I feel like, all the time. One of the main things I like to ground people on is that AI music is a tool, right? Yes, some people will use it to like one-shot songs and create, full length singing and beats and all that together. And it may sound good and may not. But a lot of what we're seeing with producers now is they're using AI as a tool, and specifically, they're using it to generate inspiration. So if they're having a creative block, they're like, okay, I need just to hear new sounds. I need to like blend genres and do so in a way that they may not, like their just imagination might not be able to do for them. And so they'll use it for inspiration. They also will use it for kind of a newer version of sampling. And so typically a lot of times when people want to take sounds from other music, they have to go through a long clearing process and all that. A lot of producers now that we're working with are generating music using AI and then listening for like an 8-bar section that they really love, taking that, putting it into their musical DAW, which is like where they, create and craft the songs. And then from there, building upon that 8-second bar. So it's not like they're just using AI to generate all their beats. They're using it as part of like a toolkit, similar to how you go to a sample pack and grab a sample and add that in. Like you didn't come up with that, right? But you're using it to further your own music. So what I see a lot of, honestly, I think we're going to get a lot of interesting music sounds we may have never heard before, new genres. But then also we will get a lot of people who maybe are creative, but maybe didn't think that they could access the skills and resources it takes to become a producer. And we'll see a lot more like people expressing their creativity through music. Now, what that feels like sometimes is that there's a bit of these people didn't have to work for it and are going to come in and replace producers that have worked years for it. And I understand that fear, right? I understand that. But at the same time, what becomes really important is taste and creating music that people actually want to listen to. And, if you've been a producer for 10 plus years, whatever years, and you've invested in your craft, taste, what people like. So you have a strong advantage. But it's just going to be interesting to see play out. And no one really knows. So that's kind of like the fun part and why I enjoy being part of this early, like nascent space.
Yeah, for sure. And I liked how you were able to share that it's not necessarily creating the entire song. It's developing like small snippets that someone can go into some sort of database and be able to utilize to, ignite creativity, be able to utilize within an existing song that they're developing. And that's super important because some people might hear this term music production. They're like, oh, they're going to create an entire song out of AI. And that's not the case. It's utilized at the fundamental state right now. Right. And how they're developing the music, getting the inspiration, and then going throughout that creative process. But, how could producer AI potentially democratize music creation and production, making it accessible to a wider global audience? Because now this tool can be utilized from anyone, regardless of if they have a music production background, if they know anything about music. I mean, it really is opening a door for really the common person to create a huge pop song potentially.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, think about like your most music loving friend, and they probably study music in the, social sense where they listen to a bunch of music. They're always finding new gems, all that. Like imagine if they were also able to create music based on like their taste, as I mentioned, and like something that people actually love. It's really cool. But one thing that is important to note too is, prior to this, you had to pretty much come to LA, go to New York, maybe Atlanta, Nashville, the big music hubs, at least in the US, to really get a shot at having your music be heard or taken seriously. And even then, getting to those places doesn't always mean that you're going to make it. Like there's just so much involved, so much politics in music, all of that. What we see is we actually have a really big international base, like user base, super huge. And people coming from countries like Indonesia, just all of the places in Africa, places in South America, places in Asia, like everywhere. And those folks may not have had an opportunity to come to the US or to go to their music hub and create music that gets known on a worldwide stage. And now they do. And something that's unique about Producer AI is that because we are kind of like a chat agent that essentially helps you and is your creative partner in making music, you can also learn like music theory. Like if you say, how can I make this song better? Or like, what key is this song in? And what if we flip it to a different key? Like it actually works with you as if it's a real, like classically trained producer in your fingertips. And that is something that a lot of people don't think know. It's like, we're not trying to take away the craft of music. We're trying to give more people the joy of making music. And that's like the most powerful piece.
For sure. And I think that chat agent that you're explaining is so crucial because it's a collaborative tool that if I'm the person that's developing this particular music, right, I can be able to ask it questions of like, can I change the key? Can I bring it up an octave? All of these, I would say, very critical questions that music producers would often answer. It almost, I wouldn't say replaces the music producer, but it creates a more economical option for those that don't have that as an option for them, right? In Indonesia, as you mentioned, around the globe. So that's super, super helpful to know because it's going to, again, level the playing field. And I think it's going to create more competition. And it's going to kind of help mainstream the types of creative music that could be available. But on that essence of creativity, because now people are, clenching their fists because it's like, oh my goodness, now how am I going to be expressive and creative if I'm just going to be leveraging AI tools to do a lot of the creative process for us? I mean, what new forms of emotional expressions do you anticipate emerging AI tools like Producer AI can be more integrated into the music creation process? I mean, do you see it helping the creative process? Do you see it perhaps diminishing it in certain areas?
Yeah, well, I think one thing that we always hear and that I acknowledge too, that feels kind of weird when you first think about it, is that this is kind of like a computer singing. Like it's kind of like a computer making music. But when I say that as well, I think about how, and then kind of as you mentioned earlier, you no longer need like live performances and a live drummer, a live flutist, you no longer need all of those live performers to create a really great song. I think what's most interesting is that we've seen this with producers and they're bringing in they're just like add drums or add saxophone, add this, and then they work it, right? Like it's similar. The computer has generated what you have just asked for. And I think it's just a little bit weird now because AI can literally do so much by using so little in terms of your prompt and what you tell it to do and create something that feels like fully fleshed out. I definitely think, though, that this is going to improve the creative process because with more music and coming into the market and the same amount of listening ears, is going to require people to really focus on their craft. It's going to allow for people to just themselves be able to express more. And I think we as humans are innately expressive, innately human, and innately creative. And technology has only shown to enable more of that from us with each new invention. This one is like a really crazy invention, which also I think means it's going to have some really crazy, cool impacts in the creative space and with human creativity in general.
No, I absolutely agree. And one thing that you mentioned at the beginning of our conversation was, there's a potential for new creative solutions, meaning that there could be new genres coming out of this because of the landscape of different sounds that could be possible that perhaps we haven't heard yet. But beyond simply generating tracks, how do you see AI assisting musicians in exploring entirely new genres or sonic landscapes that haven't existed before? I mean, if I've spent my whole life, practicing the saxophone, and I hear that, an AI generated saxophone player can play these incredible tunes. I mean, does that put live musicians out of work, or does that actually help new musicians come into the scene?
Yeah, I mean, I think one way that I look at it, if I were a professional musician, which I'm not, right, but from what we're hearing in conversations too, is a lot of people will like generate these really crazy cool combinations. So let's say you're a saxophone player and you've only done like jazz music. We could literally go into producer, create maybe a jazz saxophone solo, get that going, and then ask it to make a rock version of that. And there's two things you could do. One is you could, for the original jazz solo, try to learn exactly what it did. And so then you have basically asked to generate a song, but you're taking it into your own hands to learn it, and it can help you and all that. But then the other piece is being able to like put that into a new genre and just test things out. Even if you may not have expertise in rock, it allows you to like kind of combine things and hear how it would sound, and then just inspire even more creativity. And maybe you become the rock saxophonist, which I don't really know if anyone has done that yet, but it just becomes so easy to like explore new genres, push the bounds of creativity, and also just like learn and inspire yourself with what it creates.
We are eager to present this episode and look forward to your feedback on the impact of purpose-driven leadership.
Yeah, for sure. And I know this is kind of in tandem with producer AI, but right now, if you were on a music platform, for example, Spotify, Tidal, Apple Music, just to name a few, and let's say you're going through the algorithm and the algorithm has picked out that you like this particular genre of music, right? How could AI be used to personalize music experiences for individual listeners in ways that go beyond current recommendation algorithms? Because if producer AI is helping on the music production side, I mean, if we're looking toward the future in certain aspects, like how could it help with the listening experience? Let's say I'm on a radio that's AI generated and they already know I like this one particular pop song. Will AI generate specific songs that I only listen to? Or, I mean, how do you kind of see that? I mean, there's no right or wrong answer here. I'm just kind of getting your thoughts as to how you may see how this particular tool can evolve.
Yeah, I definitely think the future of music is extremely personalized. Like, I think that's a great question. And granted, I'm not, I don't know, this is not something in the word. I don't know how it's actually going to play out, but I see a future where, if you love a certain song, you could create a full radio of different variations and of that specific song, or you could create like a remix to that song. And there's just it'll be able to get so granular. In fact, I think like we might look back on this time where we all kind of have the favorite songs, and, there's a top 100 Billboard, and, it's like we're given music, and the music labels like give us the music that we should like, essentially. When I think with AI, it's going to make it a lot more like, oh, this is the like very niche genre of music that I love, and I can create like but I can listen to endless amounts of this, because there's also probably someone else in the world in Brazil who has literally created this exact thing. And now, because of the algorithm matching what I like with what they've created, I can like find the exact type of music that really like brings me to life. And I think it's going to become a lot more personalized, a lot more interesting. And hopefully we all get a lot of great music that we love personally out of this.
Right. And I definitely think it's going to add some additional competition to some of our mainstream artists. I believe, like, you think of the top names, but I think it's important that this particular AI generated tool is going to help level the playing field when it comes to just music exploration, yes, especially for those that are looking to, learn some indie rock music, right? That they don't hear of, like Tame Impala, to name an example, but they might hear someone a little bit more mainstream that they perhaps didn't know. And it'll give them more opportunities to widen their listener group, which I think is extremely helpful. And honestly, honestly, I think it's better for the music listener's experience, because I agree with you. Like, you have these Billboard charts and, they tell us what to listen to, or they tell you what's popular, and that's fine. I mean, but it's a very subjective perspective, and it's not your particular viewpoint. It's what someone else is perpetuating for you to view. And that's a whole nother conversation.
Right.
But
Yep.
we're not going to go too deep, because they might take the podcast down.
Right.
But I want us to really dive a little bit deeper into ethics, because this definitely generate a couple of concerns when it comes to ethical considerations, originality, and just the human input, right, to just music in general. I mean, music started with humans. I do believe it will continue to be human generated, but it's just going to sound and just feel a little bit different. I mean, what specific ethical considerations or challenges might arise from AI generated music, especially concerning originality or intellectual property?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question. I think it's something that because this is so new, it's something that the industry is trying to figure out. And there's the fair use law there. So laws that tell you how you can use copyrighted works and all of that. I think because we're so early, there are less guardrails around that. But I do think that as this becomes more mainstream, it's going to become imperative that we, maintain human artists at the center of this creation. And we do so obviously in a way that is ethical, that makes people want to engage with you. Because of course, if you create something that feels super unethical, you're going to shut out a certain demographic of people. And, the power of these music AI tools are so strong and so kind of engaging that we don't want to do that. So I think it's just a general industry question of how, because there are no guardrails now, what does that mean? How much are we going to require that these guardrails be set up to protect human artists? And what would that look like? Like, how can we most center human artists? And the other thing is, for example, I don't know if you've heard about the Zania Monet AI artist that just signed a $3 million record deal, but basically, the person behind that is a Black woman who writes poetry. And so she used one of our competitors actually to bring that music to life. And now she signed a record deal from it. And it's very controversial right now. But I think the notion that, it's no longer human, I think it is human. It's just it's human assisted with AI, right? It's you're bringing her music, her words to life. She maybe can't sing. She maybe doesn't have access to come to LA and find singers and get the right singer for her. But this AI has given her the ability to do that, and kind of in a cost-effective way, in a way that still means something. And people don't even know it's AI, which is the crazy thing. So I think as long as we're able to censor human creativity and use it as truly a tool. And then also keep in mind the ethics and people that came before us in a way that have just paved the way for the music industry. I think it will be something that benefits everybody, but it's definitely something that I think the industry is trying to work out now.
Yeah, for sure. And I think when it comes to discerning between what's AI generated music and what's original, authentic music, I mean, maybe this can be a question, are we going to, as listeners, or will we be able to detect what's the difference? Or will it just kind of sound very, very much the same?
Yeah, I mean, depends on if you have the ear to know it might be AI, right? I think I listen to music and I'm like, wait, that's probably AI, but that's because I'm listening to this music all the time just through work. And because, there's certain things that right now AI music can't emote or it can't convey in terms of just some of the natural breath work or the natural runs or being a little off key in certain parts, but that making it feel human. AI is, is kind of trying to make everything perfect and polished. So I think I can tell, my team can tell. We have a long ways to go before it's something that is completely undetectable. But I think that this kind of goes to the previous question of do you indicate that a song is AI generated? But the hard part is that a lot of people are not just posting, a good amount of people are posting one-shot songs and trying to like just generating a song on a platform and then having that be what people listen to. But a lot of people are kind of just combining different ways of making music. So they may record themselves playing the guitar, upload that into a producer, and then create a full-length song around that. But, that's still their work. Is it fully AI generated? No, like they literally played something, uploaded it, and then the producer built a song around it. Or like for me, like I sing. So sometimes I'll sing and record a voice note and have that be uploaded into producer and then ask it to create a backing track for me. And so now I have a full song with my voice. And so is it AI generated? Like, should we say, oh, this is partially AI generated? But also with producers, if they take that 8-bar that we talked about earlier in the thing and they build around it, take it to their DAW and like create a really dope song, is that AI generated? Or did they just use a tool to create it? Similar to how with ChatGPT right now, some people are making you list, when you use ChatGPT, but because let's say you put some writing into ChatGPT and want to edit it, once you bring it out, you might still be making edits and changing it. And so is it fully AI generated? It's AI assisted, but not fully. So I'm not really sure what that looks like. I think there's just a lot to work out in the industry and we're still so early, so new. It's been probably 2 years of AI music. And there's been hundreds of thousands of years of music in general. So we're so early that we're trying to figure it all out.
Yeah, I think just going forward, just full disclosures are so important, especially if an artist is using AI generated music. I think it's just helpful for the audience to know that. Now, some may see that as a pro and con, but one thing that I find to be perhaps a red flag is, who owns the music? If you're saying that you're using AI assisted music and let's say producer AI generates, the next leading pop song on Billboard's Top 100 and the artist like, yeah, I use producer AI to develop this, who owns the rights to that song? Because now they've used your tool, they're making millions of dollars. And now is it the artist's music? I mean, that's what I find to be more of an issue because now who owns it? Is it AI? Is it producer AI? Is it the artists themselves? Is it the company? Yeah. So it makes you think.
The artist actually owns it. So for us, if you pay as a subscriber to use our tool, then you own it. Whatever you create, you own. So that's handled, which is good.
That's perfect. That's exactly what I love to hear is if you use these types of tools, you own it. It's your rights and they're not going to come back and snatch it from you. So that's always good to know. Always good to know. But I think when it comes to imagination, that is a human trait that we all have the capabilities to have. If AI can imagine music, how do we define the concept of imagination when applied to artificial intelligence versus human creativity?
Getting deep on me now, Keenan. I largely see it as the same. I haven't really thought about like AI imagination. I think AI largely just uses like the inputs and use what it was taught to like create different variations and make something make sense. I still think imagination is largely human. And that's what I'll say for that. I think imagination is largely a human trait. But I do think that these models are going to get to a point where they like are the same level / rival humans and intelligence, creativity, all the things. And so I think it'd be a bit naive for us to think that there's not a future where that happens. Now, what does that look like? I don't know. I'm kind of scared for that myself, but I do think that that's something that might be on the horizon in the next few years.
Yeah, new ways to reimagine music, right? And even how we're consuming music. I mean, we have these headphones and we have these devices that have all of our music on. I mean, is that going to evolve in how we consume music? Will we be listening on a radio station? Will it be on, some sort of Bluetooth audio track, whatever? We don't know. The future is really in our hands to develop and curate. But, as we continue to think about the future, the most important part is from a human perspective, what new skills or competencies might be required for future musicians or producers who extensively utilize AI in their work. So now that the creative aspect is handled, the idea generation is handled, the snippets of the different beats and the music it's handled. What new skills are they going to need to have, do you think?
I think one of them is like prompt engineering, being able to speak to AI in a way that gets exactly what you want out. And I think prompting is honestly one of the most important parts of working with any AI model. If you see it with ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity, whatever, being able to just explicitly communicate what you ask for, that's important. I also think, as I've kind of been saying throughout here, I think taste, are you someone that when you hear something, you're like, oh, I know people are going to like this, or this is powerful. Can you decipher that without a label telling you, without is that something that is a core skill of yours? And if that is the case, then you're set, you're good. As long as you can pick out the sounds and things that are going to be valuable, because there's going to be so many more combinations of sounds and genres and all that. Do you know what sounds good? I think that's just something that's kind of intangible, but something you learn over time. And artists have a huge advantage with that, or people that are just into music in general, because they study this. They know what people will probably like, and they know what they like to create, and they know what music makes them personally come most alive, which comes out in their music.
For sure. And I'm so glad you brought it back to the originality of the artist. And I want to add storytelling, emotional storytelling. I mean, that is the essence of music. It is a story in short form. And the more that we can look at AI as a tool, we've already identified that during this conversation, but to be able to reflect and look at it as a way for me to express my story, my experience in a way that's going to resonate with my audience is so crucial. Because I think, as you mentioned, there's concerns to have, as we already explicitly stated. But if we look to what are the strengths of the human creative process and really go deeper into that, it really is going to highlight the music I believe we can create. Because now we're not concerned about the background music. That's not the concern. It's about the messaging and how we can really lock in on that. Do you have any comments or thoughts about that process?
Yeah. I mean, I think the storytelling, maybe I didn't say it because I thought it was just, it's so foundational. But I absolutely think that being able to tell a story, we'll come up with a story using your own experiences, which is where we're all unique. It's the lens by which we see the world. And then figuring out how to express that in a way that means something to you. And then maybe also, if you care about it, means something to other people. I think it's something that's going to be invaluable. And it never has gone away. With any new technological innovation that has come over the past, 100 years or whatever, it's never taken away from the need to tell a story and people to connect to the storytelling. And that's even with the Zania Monet, AI musician that just signed. People were her lyrics just hit me so hard. I relate. And it's because it's her poetry, right? It's her real life that she wrote poems about. And that's what's resonating with people, which is why I guess she's signed the deal and why people don't even realize it's AI. So,
yeah. I mean, this AI generated music, it just goes beyond just mainstream. I want to be clear, this can go into films, this can go into games, video games, virtual reality. They have the background music. I mean, all of these different sounds that were once generated by a human, I mean, it's probably copyright free and you can just utilize it and you can focus more on the craft at hand. But as we reach the conclusion of our conversation, Kendall, are there any final remarks or any final thoughts that you would like to give our listeners that are looking to adopt your platform or just AI generated music as a whole?
Yeah, I would say first, just acknowledge all the concerns that come with AI music. I think they're all 100% valid. But I do think that this is kind of here to stay. And I think the best before after addressing the criticism, but before making any assumptions on it, I would just encourage people to try these tools out, try Producer, see what it's like to actually have a conversation and make a song on your own. Because when I first did it, I was whoa, this is crazy. And it kind of sounds decent. It sounds like AI, but it also kind of sounds good. And I'm just sitting in my home and I can make something like this. It just felt whoa, I got access to something that I shouldn't have access to. Whoa. And I thought that was just so special. And I think it just goes back to we are innately human. We are innately creative as humans. And this is just a tool that's going to propel us to new means of creativity that we just don't even know yet, that we're kind of learning as we build.
Amazing. Well, Kendall, thank you so much for being on the Omega podcast.
Thanks, Keenan.